What do time management, tomatoes, and the 1980s have in common? No, this is not another bad dad joke. However, it is another opportunity for me to draw attention to the fact that the 1980s rule. Give up? The answer is the Pomodoro technique. This technique is without question the household name of productivity hacks. I am sure that you are more capable than you give yourself credit for, and the Pomodoro technique will prove it to you. In this video, I'm going to explain all about what the Pomodoro technique is and why people love it and why it works. I'll provide you with 6 tips to maximize your productivity, your focus, and your concentration, and stay away from the dreaded multitasking monster. So stick around and let's get into it.
Oh my god, look how organized my house is.
What's up, speaker fam? Welcome back to I Speak Organized. If you don't know me, my name is Melanie and I'm your professional organizer and productivity consultant. I help hardworking families and professionals find form in their space and purpose for every phase of life. I make new videos every week about home organizing, decluttering, and productivity practices, so if that is your jam, definitely go ahead and hit the subscribe button at the end of the video. It's a little circle icon of my face. You can give that a click and you will become an official member of the Speaker fam. I like to have a little bit of whimsical Mary Poppins style fun with organizing and productivity, so if you need a little bit more motivation in that department, you're definitely going to want to go ahead and subscribe so you never miss another opportunity to learn something new. So, what is the Pomodoro technique? Invented in the late 1980s, early 1990s by software industry pro Francesco Cirillo when he was a university student. The Pomodoro technique has been used by millions of self-imposed taskmasters the world over. This graphic over here shows us how the concept works. You set a timer for 25 minutes. You focus and work. Then you take a 5-minute break. You repeat this process 4 times before you take an extended break for 15 to 20 minutes. The tomato originally came into play because he used a tomato-shaped timer to track his minutes. The task increments are generally referred to as pomodoros, hence the whole Pomodoro technique. As a cool side note, Francesco Cirillo, not to be confused with our homeboy Mr. Cirillo, was a 19th century Italian businessman who is credited with helping to develop the apretization technique. This technique was used to can vegetables, and Mr. Cirillo used it to can, you guessed it, tomatoes. Does anybody else think this is a really cool coincidence? No? Okay, moving on. So, let's dive into the psychology of why this technique is so effective and some scenarios to use it in. The main reason people love the Pomodoro technique so much is because they see immediate results without a ton of effort. The beauty really is in the simplicity here, and you can use the basic timer routine to get started and complete a task much faster and more effectively than you would otherwise. Why is this? Let me give you an example. I've been a dance educator for 17 plus years, and I've used timers as an effective motivator for almost all of my teaching career. You would not believe how fast you can get a group of 10-year-olds to move when they know that 10 seconds stands between them getting in formation or doing 50 push-ups. In other words, when you're under a time constraint, you're more motivated to get as much done as possible. Most humans are low-key adrenaline junkies, and every game show host knows it. That's why the lightning round is so enthralling. It comes with the biggest, shiniest prize. However, milking your adrenal gland several times throughout the day to get important tasks done is not exactly an effective use of this technique. The timer is merely the initial phase, and we need to dig a little deeper to truly benefit. Mr. Cirillo wrote an entire book on the concept, and it's available on Audible. I super recommend it, and I will link it down in the description below. Okay, now let's dive into my 6 tips for maximizing the effectiveness of the Pomodoro technique. Tip number 1 is to understand the concept of single tasking or monotasking. Monotasking, as you can probably guess, is the opposite of multitasking, where you ask yourself to narrow down your focus to one specific task. When you have something really important to get done, you want to try to steer clear of multitasking as much as possible. We all know that giving attention to several things simultaneously is just simply not possible. So you're actually forcing your brain to frantically switch from one task to another. When we rapidly switch between ideas like this throughout long stretches of the day, it slows us down and renders us overall much less productive. The Pomodoro technique implores us to provide our undivided attention to a task as its number one principle. It doesn't matter what the task itself is, whether monumental or inconsequential. We simply just need to give it our all. I personally find this technique really effective for long-term projects or multi-step work projects, or even household chores that I loathe, like dusting. Oh, I hate dusting. I find that having a firm start and end time to certain things forces me to devote all of my attention to getting that task done before the timer goes off. Tip number 2 is to commit to pushing through the full 25-minute timer. 25 minutes really isn't that long, and nagging kids, phone calls, emails, responding to Facebook comments, all of those things can wait for 25 minutes. Of course, there are exceptions to this, like if there's an emergency with your child or an urgent meeting is called at work. So just use your best judgment when it comes to that. Ideally, you want to try to plan ahead so that you have the time to set aside to use this technique effectively without being interrupted. Tip number 3 is to just simply acknowledge your distractions. Similarly to silent meditation, you want to acknowledge the wandering thought and then bring your focus back to the meditation practice. One thing that people find effective in this case is to write the distraction down on a piece of scratch paper while they're working on a project. When the timer goes off, you can look at your scratch paper and see how many distractions you encountered to slowly work your way down as you get practice. Writing your distractions down is a really good way to track your progress and get a baseline for your ability to focus naturally. Tip number 4 is to track your progress. If you have a to-do list going, go ahead and check off each item as you complete it within the 25 minutes. It's also suggested to use a timer checklist to track how many 25-minute sessions you complete. This is the key to true time management because it shows how long it takes you to complete a project. For example, let's say that you are creating a sales presentation for a client. During your work sessions, it takes you 12 Pomodoros to finish. That's roughly 6 hours if you include your 5-minute mini breaks. If similar sales presentations are part of your everyday workflow, then you know that it takes you 5 to 6 hours to complete a sales presentation. You can then plan your time accordingly when you create your next one. How cool is that? It's pretty cool if you nerd out on productivity. Tip number 5 is to take those breaks seriously. Think about it. Would you run consecutive sprints back to back without taking a rest? Your brain isn't a muscle, but you should treat it like one and give it the rest that it needs in between sprints. The mini breaks are a good recharge, and the trick here is to actually step away from the screens for 5 minutes. This means putting your phone down, standing up, stretching your legs, going for a walk, getting some water, to really rest and recharge your brain. Most people notice by doing this consistently that it really cuts down on that feeling of mental fatigue at the end of the day. Once you've completed your 4 Pomodoros, it's important to actually take that longer extended break. I call this the marinating period. You're basically letting your mind absorb all of the information and process it. This is the same reason that students are typically told to sleep rather than cramming late night before a test. The rest usually better equips them to retain the information rather than trying to learn through mental fatigue. The bonus to scheduling your break time is that you're probably going to feel less guilty about taking it. When you know that you have it scheduled in your day, you're less inclined to feel lazy or like you should be continuing to work through. Tip number 6, the last tip to optimizing the Pomodoro technique for you is to define your objectives. While 25 minutes is the recommended time frame, you can play around with the time parameters to suit a certain task for yourself. For instance, Let's say that you have 15 minutes before everybody gets home from work or school to speed clean the house. Set yourself a 15-minute timer and use that time to go as fast as you can and get all of the major areas taken care of. Or maybe you need the first 10 of 25 minutes to review your work from yesterday to be able to maximize the following 15 minutes of continued work. Additionally, you can use your project records to determine if you're spending too much or too little time on a specific aspect of a project. For instance, let's say that your child is doing their 7th grade science project and they're using the Pomodoro technique to get through each of the phases of the project. You notice that they're devoting most of their time to the research phase. You can then track and encourage them to devote just a little bit more time to another phase, such as the recording phase or the experiment phase. All right, my friends, that wraps up this video and my 6 tips for helping you maximize the Pomodoro technique to improve your time management, your focus, and your concentration, and get more done more effectively. Let me know in the comments below if you use the Pomodoro technique or any other time management strategies to help you focus and concentrate on the important tasks in your life. I will see you all next week with another installment of my Intentional Living series. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Take care. Bye.